On a suddenly not so casual thirsty Thursday, it is NFL, the extra points, the big show, the first show of a new campaign, the Shark and the Gun. Numerous guests coming on this show with us throughout the season. Every Thursday night, every Sunday morning, it is the opener. It is right here live on Sharky Waters Nation. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
It is finally here, folks. We waited months after months after months, looking out of that window, wondering when football season is coming. Guess what? It starts tonight. NFL, we have the KC Chiefs going against the Baltimore Ravens. What a better game, the AFC Championship rematch. I need you guys to get in the comment section. I need you to tell me what you're on today because we're going to give you our plays, but we want to know yours. Let's go, Shark. I'm ready to go.
As am I. And I was just watching a rematch, the previous game played between these two teams. It was back in January. It was the AFC Championship game in Baltimore, January the 28th, September the 5th. Now, the first official of this season, a collaboration official, a lot of angle to discuss. Guns Picks. Lead off the conversation, an opportunity to dominate.
Yeah, we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens going against the Kansas City Chiefs. Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri, 8:20 p.m. East is the kick. We know where Baltimore and KC came from. This is a rematch of the AFC Championship that Baltimore played at home, lost it to KC. KC was the eventful winner of the Super Bowl in the next game. But when we look at this backfield for Baltimore, some improvements have been done. Of course, Derrick Henry going to be joined the backfield with Lamar Jackson. That is going to be a very interesting element to see how they create with that, giving a little bit of pressure off of Lamar to go create on his feet. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they do lose their defensive coordinator to Seattle to go take the head coaching job there. However, they kept the core talent together with Roquan Smith and Justin Matabuke. Is going to be with that team. And the secondary looks strong as ever and healthier as ever with a lot of guys coming back from injury. They're going to be top 10 coverage unit in the league. On the KC side, not a lot of changes made, more losses than gains on that one, but the wide receiver core is going to change a bit with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. By the way, Hollywood Brown probably not going to be playing in this game. They also get Juju Smith-Schuster back, so is this wide receiver core as good as they say? We will have to see in this game. Of course, Travis Kelce, a 34-year-old, playing this game as well, getting a little bit long in the tooth for a tight end. But when we break down this game, let's talk about the AFC Championship. Shark alluded to it. He already watched the game film, and he'll talk about his take on it in a second. I'll talk about the box score. Plus 17 net yard average was actually at a plus. Baltimore had a plus 17 net yard gain over KC in that game. And when you break that down, Pat Mahomes passed lights out with a 76.9 pass completion rate, which is 10% better than his season average. Also, look at the penalties in that game. KC only had 3 penalties for 30 yards, where Baltimore had 8 penalties for 95 yards. Ref bias? I guess the conspiracy tinfoil hat guys would have to tell us that. Baltimore, -3 turnover ratio in that game, 2 fumbles, 1 INT as well. Let's break down 2 of those turnovers were in the fourth quarter. An INT when Baltimore was driving to the KC 25 that was picked as they were trying to throw a pass in towards the end zone. And then Zay Flowers had a fumble right at the goal line that could have put them in a better position in that game. Of course, they lost that game by 7 points. 2 instances that had scoring opportunities that they let fall out of their hands and into KC's. Also, look at Baltimore, how they perform in these type of spots. 15-4-2 ATS as an away dog since 2017. 12-3-1 as a dog of 3 points or less since 2017. And then Baltimore is 8-1-2 as an away dog versus non-divisional opponents. On the other side with KC, 21-23-1 as a home favorite since 2018. 0-2 ATS as a favorite of 3 points or less since 2023. And then 2-3 ATS as a home favorite versus non-divisional opponents. While those numbers don't sound great, I think the Baltimore numbers sound a lot better. So you have the revenge factor checkbox. You have the trends checkbox. And really, when you break down that box score, Baltimore really should have won that game, in my opinion. But in this case, this is Baltimore's Super Bowl, believe it or not. They're the most motivated team in this game. KC is fat and happy coming off that Super Bowl win. They're collecting their rings. They're waving to the fans. Everybody's cheering. Yay! Baltimore's on the sidelines screaming at each other. He goes, this should have been us. This should have been us. This should have been us. And we're going to see it tonight here with the Baltimore Ravens. Give it up for them. Give me Baltimore +3 as one unit. And give me the money line at Baltimore plus 130 for another unit.
Absolutely jumping off it. The chat is popping. We see our guys here. Mitch Decker, Peter Gracia, Penguin on Perks, assuming a party engaged tonight. Enjoy that. And a lot going on here. But I really want to jump off of what Gunn said. We want to center this on the AFC Championship game in the second half specifically. Because for those of you guys who remember Kansas City last year, Kansas City was horrendous scoring the football in the second half. And that wasn't just a regular season trend. That was in the postseason. And if you look at what they did to get to the championship last year, a tight 3-point win in Buffalo, a one-possession win in Baltimore, a game, as Guns mentioned, they were largely dominated in the second half, and then another 3-point win in the Super Bowl. Praise them, give them their flowers, and I'll say this, remove the flowers from Zay Flowers, who almost single-handedly costed the Ravens in the second half of the AFC Championship game. Guns mentioned it. I have written down here the Zay Flowers drive. Third to last drive of the game, Baltimore down 10. Zay Flowers, 50-yard catch down to the 5-yard line, taunting penalty. Get your head right, brother. Then, 2 plays later, fumble at the goal line, then goes to the bench, smashes his hand on the bench, and is injured for the rest of the game. And Baltimore, of course, could not come back with a Lamar Jackson end zone pick on the next drive. But I really want to hone in on the motivational gap in this game. And I have written down here, this is the single biggest motivational edge in week 1, 2024 pro football of one team versus the other. Go through every single game on this card on Sunday and tomorrow night in Sao Paulo. Baltimore wants this game bigger than any other team versus any other opponent. And you really start to go through it. Lamar Jackson was drafted 1 year after Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, in his career, has 2 home AFC Championship OT losses and 4 Super Bowl appearances and 3 championships, 2 consecutively leading into this season. Lamar Jackson has a couple good regular seasons and a bunch of hot air in the playoffs. And this guy signed a huge contract before last year. He needs to stand up. He has the coach who will put him in a position to succeed. And if you look at that game, Baltimore loses on their home turf and has to go home all off season and think about it. Then they go to camp and Harbaugh in their ear, Lamar Jackson, as I said, I was just watching NFL Network, a replay of that game, cursing out the officials. Baltimore with almost 100 penalty yards in that game. This is what Guns said, a Super Bowl motivation to open the season. Go to the Chiefs. The Chiefs play Super Bowls in February, not September. And you start to look at what they've done in recent history in home openers. 0-3 ATS last 3. Go back to 2021, a tight win, non-cover against Cleveland and Baker Mayfield. 2 years ago, a 3-point win in the division against the Chargers. And last year, the same game, basically from the standpoint of the home opener, Thursday Night Football, national TV, off a Super Bowl win, outright loss to Detroit, 21-20. The Chiefs don't want to peak in this game. They want to figure it out. And I've said this before on different content points, but the first time on the Extra Point show, the Chiefs are the new Patriots. And if you guys remember the Patriots for 20 years, they don't want to peak early. In fact, they oftentimes look terrible early. They have new personnel every year. You're winning titles. Other teams are poaching your talent and your coordinators. It becomes more and more difficult every year to sustain this, particularly in the early weeks. And final point on this game, Chiefs have a ton of new personnel in the wide receiver department, as Guns mentioned. They're starting tonight with, I believe, Rashee Rice and rookie Xavier Worthy out of Texas. This is Patrick Mahomes. It's going to take time for these guys to look like his guys on the field. And final point on this, Chiefs last year in the regular season at home were 1-3 ATS against playoff caliber teams. Baltimore wants it. Chiefs won't want it that bad. Big time spot. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. Guns picks. Let's talk about the total very briefly. I think you're leaning towards the under.
Yeah, I'm just on the sheer fact this is game one, and we saw it last year with Detroit and KC. It's going to have a similar field, and granted, the perception of these two teams is you have two great offenses, and it shows. Top 10 on both sides of the ball for KC and Baltimore in 2023, and we saw the same thing with Detroit as a top 10 team going against a top 10 offense versus a KC team. But this is an Arrowhead; it's a different feel, it's a different vibe on this one. I think these offenses, especially with all the new talent that's coming onto this team, there's going to be a little bit of a struggle, especially with KC. We're talking about Pat Mahomes with a new wide receiver core. I mean, granted, he's got his crutch at Travis Kelce still on that team, but Roquan Smith is still on that team for Baltimore too. I think there's going to be a little bit of, trying to figure out how to maintain him and take away the ball from his main target and allow Xavier Worthy and a lot of the other receivers on that core to try to create something. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a feel for Pat Mahomes trying to figure out like his new receiver core. And on the other side for Baltimore with Derrick Henry and with Lamar Jackson, I don't think they're going to try to let up the offense and score quick on this one. I think with those two in the backfield, they're going to be able to move the ball and move it methodically and control time of possession. Granted, the offensive line has a lot of issues for Baltimore, especially to start the season. But I think overall, we're going to be looking at a low total here. And I think it's sitting at 46.5, 47 before we got on the show. I think this is going to stay under the total on this one. We're probably looking at a 20-10 or 20-13 type mentality, almost similar to what we saw in the AFC Championship game. So it wouldn't surprise me if this stayed very low and covered very easy. So, yeah, I like under 47 in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't talk you off of it. I'm just going back through the last handful of games the Chiefs did play at Arrowhead going back to last year. The only playoff game played at home was the wild card round Saturday, January 13th against Miami, 26-7, way under there. And that's against a Miami juggernaut offense. You guys remember that game? I believe it was like 0 degrees. Tua and the boys looked like they wanted nothing to do with pro football that Saturday afternoon. And then you go back through the regular season against these playoff teams, as we mentioned, where they were 1-3 ATS. 21-20 against Detroit, 21-17 against Philadelphia, 20-17 against Buffalo, and 25-17 against Cincinnati. So versus tonight's number, that is actually 4-0 to the under versus playoff teams last year. And again, it just really is reiterating this Patriots conversation, because as a Patriots guy myself, and of course the Gun, having grown up in New England, having followed that team for really, it was 20 years. It was the most impressive run in NFL history. They had to reinvent themselves at least 4 or 5 times significantly throughout to sustain through such a big window, because again, the hard salary cap in football is so much different than sports like baseball, where you can just keep plugging money to these guys. Guys leave. And not only that, the shelf life of talent in the NFL is so much smaller given the physicality of the sport. So I think it's very interesting to note we're sitting here campaign 7 for Patrick Mahomes. As I mentioned, his worst outcome for any season in his career is an overtime loss in the AFC Championship game. This is the most impressive start to a career in NFL history. But I think this is where it gets interesting now, because as he gets older, he will continue to refine his craft. He's going nowhere in terms of his personal quality as a quarterback, but the personnel around him is going to constantly change. The quality may never get better than guys like Tyreek Hill dating back a couple of years, and of course Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end in NFL history. This is where Tom Brady and the boys had a few years they were not loaded on offense, and they had to really find their way early season, and they caught their stride in November and December. I truly believe we could be looking at a Chiefs team here in week 8 who's right around 500 and is covering maybe 20% of their games. I think they're one of the best early season fades against the spread in the league. Sure. And Guns, any further comments on this one?
Yeah, I want to pick out something here. Eric, Catherine just said it's going to rain. Also, like the under. I was like, what we need to tell people about this is like rain doesn't constitute a total, wind does. So if it's raining there, that doesn't matter. It shouldn't convey you to take the under on any single play. You just got to check the wind. Wind does have a factor. Balls go down. It's really hard to throw. They have to run the ball a little bit more, but you can throw the ball in the rain. Those guys know how to catch wet balls. They do it in practice. They train for this stuff. You guys, these are professional athletes, folks. So don't look when you're looking at totals. Don't just automatically take it under because it's raining there. Look at the wind. Look at how everything's going to be jiving out as far as that goes. And typically, if the sharps know about the wind, the time you know about the wind, the number's gone anyways. So I just want to make that comment there about weather.
No, I totally agree, and that's I forget who said that, but that is just a conversational point which we've been talking about for years. It's such a sharp comment from the gun because if you actually think about it, I know a lot of you guys probably played football growing up. When the rain hits the field and it's wet, it's far more difficult to be playing defense as you have high-level athletes running towards you. They're running downhill on you. You're trying to backpedal and, zigzag backwards on rain, wet field. So it actually hurts the defense a lot more than it hurts the offense. So you've seen a couple of these. It's rain. It's even snow. Speaking of New England, I remember the Patriots put up about 60 points on the Titans in the snow in Foxborough back in the day.
Randy Moss.
It's all because the defense really has terrible footing in these circumstances. But as Guns mentioned, the unders are much more so with wind because you cannot throw the football. You cannot kick the football. It's very uncomfortable for players. And wind obviously does also coincide with excruciating cold temperatures. And that would be the game that I referenced with Miami putting 7 points on the board throughout a 60-minute football game in January in Arrowhead. And that is the Miami Dolphins offense that is loaded with speed and athleticism. 7 points, key point, 0 degrees. So just keep that in mind. We're always trying to educate as well as give you guys the top picks. That's going to do it for tonight's broadcast. We will be on here tomorrow night. The Shark and the Gun Knowledge for College, looking for a bounce back week. Week 1 was not ideal, but key point on this endeavor, stay the course of action. We will get it right. We appreciate you guys immensely in the chat on X and YouTube. It is the Shark. It is the Gun. We will be having guests on this show on Thursday night throughout the season. If you guys want to come on, shoot me a DM. We'll see if you are ready to go with us. And we appreciate you guys immensely. Baltimore tonight, lay down the hammer. Guns picks, a pleasure as always. Close them out, and let's dominate.
Yeah, we might have reverse swept the board on the show, but guess what? The Sharps didn't do so well either. And guess who you're looking at? You're looking at 2 beautiful Sharps on this one. He's got a better head of lettuce than I do, but I wear a hat to cover my stupid head. But let's talk. But please join us there on Friday, 7 p.m. tomorrow for Knowledge for College, like Shark alluded to. It's going to be an electric show. We're going to have the hottest place on the planet. We are going to bounce back immensely on that show. And, of course, Sunday at 10 a.m., the hottest show on the planet. The new name of the show, The Extra Points NFL Show. Please join us for that. We'll give our top plays in the NFL as well. So good luck with your plays today. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bang.